Hi there, my name is Jo Morris and I am the founder of SciRecipes. I take everyday recipes and twist them with science in order to make learning about the world a bit more fun and tasty. I am the one and only person within the business, so basically it involves running the business, everything. So accounting, product design, putting the baking kits together, going to the post office, selling them, the social media, pitching, trying to get investment. So yeah, it's full on. It can feel a bit overwhelming on some days, but I really enjoy it. I love the challenge of learning something new, which you pretty much do every day when you're trying to set up and run a business. Okay, so as I said in the previous clip, I'm the only person that works here, so this is an organisation of one. I set up the business about 5 years ago. It was actually called something different then. I'd named it after the blog that I was starting to write, which was called Geology Girl Rocks. And the blog had involved a lot of different things, basically kind of about my life as being a geologist. But one of the things that I included were these recipes that I was coming up with that could teach people about rocks and fossils and volcanoes and things. And my friends sort of said, you know, you should turn that into a business. So I went off and did a 12-week entrepreneurship class, and it kind of became clear that the one thing that I should work on was just the recipes. So I split them apart. So I still have the blog. I occasionally write on that. I'm just so busy at the moment, I've kind of left it to one side for the time being. And then I now SciRecipes is just the recipe part of that blog. So I came up with the idea when I was at university about 10 years ago, and I belonged to a research group, and we would bake cakes each time we had a meeting. And at first it used to just be sort of the bog standard muffins and cupcakes and things, and then people started trying to design their geology field area in cake. So it'd be like layers of chocolate and vanilla sponge like layered up and then cut and offset. So when you cut through it, it would look like a geological fault inside the cake. And these cakes would be huge, and we would never finish them in our meetings, so they'd be taken upstairs for the rest of the department to eat. And everybody would start then asking questions about people's research, and I don't think those questions would have been asked had there not been a cake put in front of them. So it kind of got me thinking, going, well, you know, we're all sat around now asking each other and learning from each other, and can I create simple recipes that everybody can use? People who don't think themselves as scientists or struggled learning science at school, can they do this thing that they do every day in a kitchen but actually learn from it as well? So that's kind of how the idea came about, and I sat on it for a long time and went and worked and, you know, was really busy. And then when I was made redundant, I started, as I said in the previous clip, putting these ideas on a blog, and it's kind of grown from there. One of the things was the name change. So the reason why there was the name change is because when I started doing market research, some people were saying if it had the word girl in the title, then their sons wouldn't be interested in buying it. So I knew I had to create a new brand name, because I didn't want to cut out 50% of my market. Whilst I want to fight for equality in the workplace, I don't want to just make a product and only sell to the female population. So that's one of the reasons behind the name change to SciRecipes. And hopefully in a bit I'll get to show you some of my branding, and you'll be able to see I've used very gender neutral colours. Okay, so a typical day, right? So this year, for starters, has not been typical. So I'm not sure I can really answer what a typical day and what, you know, what's in the calendar year quite as well. And also, when you're an entrepreneur and you're just starting out and setting up a business, I also don't think that there's a typical day, really. But I suppose I work from home, I work by myself, which is nice in some respects, but it can be a bit lonely. So I try very hard to belong to sort of networking groups, and I belong to my local triathlon club. Try and see my friends for lunch at least once a week if I can, just so I'm getting out of the house and actually seeing people, and not just, sitting at home and wondering, what am I doing, and is it right, is it wrong, sort of thing. So I suppose in my line of work with the products, there is a bit of a seasonality with it. So we're running up to Christmas at the moment, so there's a lot of Christmas markets on, and presents and gift buying. It has been challenging this year. If markets are running, just trying to get a place as a stall holder has been really difficult, because of course the stall holders also have to social distance, not just the customers. So a lot of Christmas markets are a lot smaller this year, if they're running at all. So, I think I am trying to expand more products, so there's sort of less of a seasonality with it, and I can try and do things, once a month. So things like supper clubs and classes. But again, in January, February, that was my plan for this year, was to try and set up these things. And with the pandemic, I've just had to put them on hold, because I simply cannot run them with people, like in person. So, I can probably, if next year goes to plan and we open a bit more, the plan will be to start going out and pitching to investors. I've created what I feel now is sort of my end product in branding, that can really go out there to supermarkets and things, but I will need investment in order to do that. I also published my recipe book at the end of last year, ready to go out and sell this year, and again, that hasn't happened. So the plan will be for next year in 2021, when more of like London Book Fair, for example, is a great place to go to, because every publisher, every agent will be there. And my plan was to go with my sort of little self-published version that only had 10 recipes in, and go and say, can we make a proper version of this recipe book, hardback, try and get it into Waterstones and things like that. So, it's been very up and down this year. I've had some really great days at markets where I've actually proven my concepts, and I've come away and made a lot of money and gone, okay, this business is working, it's going to work now. But it's not been very regular, and that's the plan for next year, is just to try and make it a bit more of a regular income. Okay, so best part of my job, I think, is the ownership of the idea. So every win that you have, it's because you've created it. So you've taken this idea in your head and developed the product and things like that. And when you're at a market stall and somebody is buying your product and they're going away with their head buried in your recipe book, or with a kid really excited about going home and baking and learning all about dinosaurs, that's really cool. Like, it's just like, yay, a little party inside when that happens. So that's and nobody can take it away from you. Like, you have, if that's happened to you, like, you've achieved it. So, that's really cool. Some of the worst parts of the job, I think, working by yourself. If something's going wrong, you can only rely on yourself to kind of sort it out. Saying that, though, that's why I belong to networking groups, because you can then sort of log on and go, like, is anybody else having this trouble? And somebody else has usually had the same problem, and they'll answer, and you'll be like, okay, great, I can sort it. But, when you're on your own and you've got these things to sort out, it can be a bit frustrating. And also, when I have to do my accounts, I really don't like doing accounts. So I have to submit my tax return in the next couple of weeks. So, that's nice bottle of wine out and put some good music on and just sort of head down and get on with it. So I think if I kind of joke, if I could just be paid to develop recipes that are science themed, I'd be fine, I'd be sorted. But unfortunately, there's a lot more to running the business. So you kind of have to set yourself, do your accounts first and then design the recipes. Reward yourself with the fun part of the business after doing the harder part of the business. I studied science. I was a massive nerd. I absolutely loved it. I was just absolutely fascinated in how everything works. Like, I wanted to know about volcanoes, and I wanted to learn about outer space and everything like that. So naturally, I went on to study science at university. I chose geosciences. You might have heard it as geology, earth sciences, because it was just, I got to travel around the world in search of really cool volcanoes and fossils. It was just loads of fun. I'm much more of a visual learner, so I need to see things to understand them, and I was rubbish at maths, and so physics, engineering, chemistry, biology were kind of, I had no interest in studying them at university, but I absolutely loved geology. Really got on with it. I spent 8 years at university studying, and then I went to work in the oil and gas industry up in Aberdeen. And that's the industry. Unfortunately, with the oil price crash in 2015, I was made redundant. So I no longer work as a geologist, but I consider myself, like, it's one of these things, like, once a geologist, always a geologist. And I have loads of people, if they go on holiday, they send me pictures of rocks and go, can you explain this to me? Or if we're out for a walk with my friends, they're just like, oh, how old is this rock? Or explain to me that formation and things. So it's great fun. There is a bit of a regret, though, that like when I was at school and when I was mainly at university, you choose just one subject. And even for my A-levels, they were all science A-levels. And I really wish I'd had a bit more of a range. So a lot of universities now have got sort of entrepreneur, like enterprise hubs. And there's a real encouragement of encouraging students to set up businesses whilst they're also students, and we never really had that when I was at uni. So I'm learning a lot now because I never really did it when I was younger. It's not been planned. Like, I think if you'd asked me 10, 15 years ago, would I be trying to set up and run a business, I'd have laughed and said, no way. Like, that's not what I want to do. But I think after being made redundant, I just realised sometimes you don't want to make your future dependent on somebody else. And by setting up my own business and creating my own, like developing my own ideas and building a product out of it, it's just been an absolutely amazing experience, and I'm so glad I'm trying it and doing it. At the moment it seems to be working and I'm succeeding. It can be a big risk, you get scared a lot when you go to some of these entrepreneur things and they say, only 1 in 5 businesses succeed past 5 years and things like that, and just like, why would I do that to myself? But the other side to it is, if you don't try, you never know. And I just wanted to try and find out if I could do it. So it's not been planned. I generally make up my plans as I go along and learn as I go. There's some legal things that I have to do. So because I run a food business, I need my level 2 food hygiene. So some of the training is compulsory. But in general, I just sort of pick and choose what courses I do as I go along. I try to do a lot of social media and marketing, PR kind of jobs, like training, just to try and learn that side of things, because I don't have that much experience in it. Okay, my top tips are: choose something that you're really passionate about, because trying to set up your own business, in no matter what field it's in, mine specifically like food and drink and science, but you will have really tough days, and if you're really passionate, you really care about what you're doing, it's kind of then a bit easier to get through those tougher days. I think if you're creating a product, be really on top of the value of that product. So not only just how much is it to create just that product. So for me, my baking kits, it's the ingredients that go in,